Hey, everybody. Welcome to Daniel Davis's Deep Dive, where we are looking out for you by showing you some of the things that are going on beneath the surface that you're not going to get on major media, where they're not going to tell you all the things that you need to know. They're only going to tell you what they want you to know. And this is another one of those episodes where what you're going to see now is definitely only a partial story. And in fact, what the story that you're going to see presented here in just a second is very, very deceptive. And the way it's put together is really impressive from a marketing standpoint, because it sure sounds like it's a very patriotic and positive thing for America. But as I'm going to show you, both from my personal knowledge about combat, as well as some other information that you might not know, you're going to see that this is not at all the way it's presented. And that's one of the things that we do here at Deep Dive. And one of the reasons why we started this show is because so many things that you see on television very often are very distorted pictures. But if you don't have the deep knowledge underneath it, you might not know that you're even being manipulated. And that's what we want to try to prevent here. And that's exactly what's happening on the TV screen right now. Take a look.
When America arms Ukraine, we get a lot for a little. Putin is an enemy of America. We've used 5% of our defense budget to arm Ukraine, and with it, they've destroyed 50% of Putin's army. We've done all this by sending weapons from storage, not our troops. The more Ukraine weakens Russia, the more it also weakens Russia's closest ally, China. America needs to stand strong against our enemies. That's why Republicans in Congress must continue to support Ukraine.
Okay, there is so much to unpack on this one here. This one short little 30-second clip, there's a lot of things that are going on behind the scenes on this one. Number one, we'll start right out the front. Russia is not an enemy of the United States. The only reason that we're against them right now is because we have chosen to support their enemy in their war against Ukraine. But we are not at war against Russia. Therefore, they are not our enemy. You can say they are our adversary. They are an adversarial relation, but they are not an enemy. And that's a very important distinction, because an enemy is somebody you're fighting a war against. And we're not fighting a war against Russia. And God help us if we ever devolve into that situation. And so what that does mean specifically is that the very premise at the beginning says that because they're an enemy, everything that follows there is going to be justified. Only it's not. The next part in there where they claim, hey, this is a great deal. This is a financial boon. We're only spending 5% of our national defense budget on helping Ukraine, and we've destroyed 50% of the Russian army. That is just blatantly untrue. First of all, maybe the first part is true. I don't have those figures in here, but gracious, 5% of an almost $900 billion defense budget is going to another country that we don't even have a treaty ally with. We're just giving them lots of our stuff. But the next thing he talks about is that, hey, and all this support we've given them, this stuff's we're not sending our troops to fight. Ergo, they're not our enemy. Because we're not fighting a war against Russia. So that makes sense. But they're saying it's coming from storage, like it's just extra stuff. Don't even worry about it. Okay, let's take a look at that. Let's examine that a little more deeply. What have we actually sent? And is it just extra stuff? Or is this stuff that comes out of our defense inventory that we have built and prepared and set aside to defend our country should we actually get into a war? So you're talking major end items like the Patriot air defense system, the M1 Abrams tanks, Paladin self-propelled howitzers, M777 howitzers, hundreds and hundreds of our best infantry fighting vehicles like the Stryker, like the Bradley. Some of the MRAPs that we used a lot during the Iraq and Afghanistan wars, and then thousands, I believe, of Humvees and other kinds of trucks that are going on there. Millions of shells. Now, we're trying to rebuild that inventory right now, but look, the vast majority of those shells and all the other bullets and everything we've given them, that's coming out of our war stocks. Do you understand that? So if we suddenly get into a war somewhere, an unexpected conflict, we don't have the shells anymore that we could maintain our own artillery barrage if we have the need to do so. If we have to sustain a war somewhere, our defense capability is now diminished significantly from what we would need to fight. There's no mention of that in there. These guys who support this so-called Republicans for Ukraine, led by Bill Kristol, is one of the big advocates of that. And of course, he was one of the big advocates of the war in Iraq that we never needed to fight. And he constantly said we should continue to do so. That's his modus operandi. So it's important that you understand who's backing this, people who have a history of backing forever wars. And they seem to have very little concern about, what else happens in this war. The least of which is the Ukrainian people. You know what you never heard in that whole clip there? You never heard anything about this is to help Ukraine win their war. This invasion of Russia, that they came into this country and we want to help them win the war. And here's how we're going to do it. Not even to mention that the only place that Ukrainian people were even mentioned in this is used as props to make you feel, sorry for them. And to make you more want to go and support and say, yeah, we should give more money. Actually, you had this picture of Zelensky at one point, and you had this happy little family and a guy in a military uniform waving their flags, all trying to elicit patriotic fervor from you to say, yeah, that's what we should do. You know what? That also is not in there is the cost it's having on Ukraine and the people, the men who are fighting this war. They are being devastated at the very minimum. It's hundreds of thousands of Ukrainian men have been killed or wounded. And those are only the physical ones. There's hundreds of thousands more who have suffered tremendous in PTSD, traumatic brain injuries. And we're just scratching the surface of the consequence of that over time. Every day there's more. There are hundreds of Ukraine men dying or being wounded every single day of this combat. Sometimes there's a whole bunch more. A few times it's apparently gotten into the thousands. And none of that is talked about here. And as we've talked about many times on several previous episodes of Deep Dive here, there is no viable military path to which Ukraine is going to be able to successfully drive Russia out of its country. It's just not there, because one of our common mantras here that we repeat a lot is that war is fought with men, not with machines. Wars are won with men, not machines. And so it doesn't matter how much stuff we have if they don't have the human capital necessary to drive Russia out, because they have this extraordinary, strong, elaborate defensive systems. They're building more by the day. They're recruiting more troops by the day. If Ukraine has not succeeded since December of last year to move the line any notable amount back in the direction to drive Russia out, and they haven't, especially after this summer offensive, which hardly gained any ground at all and is now almost exhausted their offensive capacity. And it's unclear that they're going to be able to build a new one. And if you understand that, then you have to ask the question of these supporters of this video, what are you suggesting that we do? What is the impact if we do what you say? And the impact is going to be, it'll keep the war going. It'll keep Ukraine fighting longer, dying more every day, having more of their cities wiped off the face of the map. And that's not going to help us at all. Sure, it's going to keep the defense budget going. It's going to keep the defense contractors going, because they're going to continue to make money, because now we're, for example, ramping up in the shells. We're ramping up in air defense missiles, anti-tank missiles, anti-air missiles of various types and other things. So they're fine with it. Of course, they're going to support that. But we shouldn't support that. Why would we want to, as Americans, want to support an operation when there is no military path to victory, to continue to support as long as it takes, giving ammunition and weapon to somebody who wants to keep fighting? And they certainly do. Let's be very clear on that. The Ukraine side desires this. You have Zelensky daily asking for more stuff. But our obligations are different. This is not our country that's been attacked. And we have to ask, why would we want to provide someone the means to keep fighting when all it's going to do is get them killed, and it's not going to produce a positive impact? There's a moral implication and a moral quotient that's involved here that this video doesn't even address. It doesn't address morals at all. And to me, look, I want Ukraine to be whole as much as anybody, but there's a reality factor. And the truth is, there is no path to success. So then that means that to pursue a policy that seeks to have that outcome is immoral, because all it's going to do is get more Ukrainians killed and cities destroyed. So in the light of reality, the moral thing to do is to do whatever is necessary to help them find a diplomatic solution. See, whether it's this video or all these constant statements by the highest members of our government, both uniformed and civilian, the only thing they ever talk about is supporting Ukraine for as long as it takes. What you don't hear any of them say is let's expend our enormous diplomatic capital and resources to try to find an end to the fighting, to try to find any way to placate the two sides to at least some minimum level to where the war ends and the killing stops. No one even talks about that. That's not even on the table. Now, we hear oftentimes about that many of our government officials say, well, Putin doesn't want to talk about it. He's not even willing to consider it. Well, of course, Zelensky is also not willing to consider it. That doesn't tie our hands. We're not limited to what they say. We're not even trying, us and the West and NATO. We're just throwing weapons out there. And again, you can't get past this. This always devolves back to the people of Ukraine who are dying daily in a fight they can't win. And we're doing nothing to try to end the fighting. We're just shoveling more bullets in so that they keep fighting. And that's something that's going to have to change. But we need to understand when you see videos like this, that it's never the way they're projecting it. And they're not showing you the things behind the scenes. And I'm here looking out for you by letting you know, here's what else is going on. So if you want to support this, that's your prerogative to do, but you need to know the truth of it. And you need to know what's behind the scenes that they're not telling you about. And now then you're armed with that. So one of the big things I think we really love about starting the show and why we're even doing it is because if you're armed with the truth, know what's really going on, not looking from anybody's perspective, no corporate perspective, no Democrat perspective, Republican perspective, anybody else's perspective, but from America, from a regular person, it says, here's the truth. This is just the truth. You can make with it what you will. Then I think you're going to be better armed to be able to make decisions about what you want to support and not what they tell you to support. There's your deep dive today, and we're looking forward to see you on the next one.